Today we're making loaded beef and bean dip for the big game. Let's get started. All right guys, the first thing we want to do is get over to our PK grill. We've had our Lodge cast iron skillet heating up for about 5 to 8 minutes on the grill. And once it does that, you're going to get a nice hot skillet to get a good sear on the ground beef, the onions, and the jalapeno. So let's move it to the grill and get them sauteing. All right, our skillet's been heating up about 7 to 8 minutes. Let's get the grill open, throw a little bit of olive oil in. You can see that olive oil is kind of bubbling up. Go ahead and throw some ground beef in, get it busted up. All right, as our ground beef is browning, I want to get a little bit of my chicken rub on here. That's right, chicken rub. It's got a nice savory flavor to it, got a lot of herbs in it, and some spice. So with the wind blowing, I'm going to dump it in my hand here, and I'm going to get about a tablespoon. So that will work. Now, as our ground beef's browning, I want to go ahead and get in one diced up small jalapeno. I took the seeds out of mine. You can leave the seeds in yours if you want it more spicy. I've got half of a diced up medium-sized onion. Going to get in our pan too. All right, as our ground beef and our onions and our jalapenos cook down, we've got a cup of shredded Monterey Jack and a cup of shredded cheddar. Now we shredded this ourselves. You can of course buy bag cheese if you want, but I love shredding cheese myself. I'm gonna take 8 ounces of sour cream. All right, I'm gonna get that in my bowl. Get it all cleaned out good. Then I'm gonna take a block of softened cream cheese. Get that in. And then I've got 2 cans of refried beans. All right, before we start mixing this around to incorporate our ground beef and everything, I'm gonna add some of my buddy's, Malcom's Grande Gringo, his Mexican-inspired seasoning. It works very well with my chicken rub because the herbs and stuff in it. It's killer on chicken and everything else. We do sell it on our website as well, but let's get some of that in. And I'm gonna go heavy, maybe about a tablespoon and a half is what I'm gonna go. All right, let's get this all mixed up. All right, just a quick tip, guys. Before you pull your ground beef, your onions, and your jalapenos off, I've kind of pushed everything to one side. We've got some excess oil and grease in here. I'm gonna throw a paper towel in there and kind of sop that up. And that way, before we dump it in our bean dip mixture, to incorporate everything, we've got the majority of that oil out. All right, we've got our hamburger mixture off. It's all browned up. Let's get it in our bean dip mixture. Oh, I wish you could smell this. Set our skillet to the side there. Start mixing everything up. All right guys, we've got everything mixed up. I've got my skillet moved here. I'm gonna use the same skillet that we browned the ground beef in. Let's get our bean mixture in it. Now once you get it in it, let's spread it out. Now, y'all know once we get that spread out what we're gonna do. We gotta come back with a little bit of cheddar cheese and a little more Monterey Jack on top. Now I've got a cup of each. We're gonna see if we can't make it fit. Don't let anybody tell you that freshly grated cheese isn't better than bag cheese, because they be lying. All right, now the last thing to do, y'all know we're gonna come back with just a tad more of that Grande Gringo. Get that sprinkled on. Now, don't forget, this is one of the most important parts. Don't reach back and grab your skillet after it's been on the grill so long. Be sure you use your ThermalWorks pot holder here. So let's get it back over to our PK. Man, look at this dip. We've been on about 25 minutes. It's got a perfect color to it. Cheese is melted. Let's get that over to the cutting board. All right, guys, the first thing we want to do when we get our dip off, we're letting it cool down. I'm going to get a little bit of pico de gallo on it and a little bit more sour cream, and then we're going to be ready to start eating it. Now that our loaded beef and bean dip is ready for the big game, let me just recap for you. We took 2 cans of refried beans, 2 cups of cheese, 1 Monterey Jack, and 1 cup of freshly shredded cheddar. Mixed it into 8 ounces of sour cream, some Grande Gringo, and we browned our ground beef, onions, and jalapeños separately. Toss it all together. Got it back on, topped it with a little more cheese. Remember, this recipe is going to be in the description down below. This dip is going to be phenomenal. We put it back on the PK grill over that roll oak charcoal and let it go for about 25 minutes to brown up the cheese and everything get good and bubbly hot. And I can't wait to get in here and try this dip. Let's have a bite. Oh, look at that big old bite there. Still steamy and hot. I'm telling you guys, this right here is a guaranteed hit. Be sure to try it at your next party or get together. For the big game, it doesn't matter, because it's not going to get much better than that. If you like what we're doing, be sure to like, subscribe, ring that bell, follow along, because you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and of course, YouTube. I'll see you next week with another recipe.